What's up, family, and welcome back to another episode of the Melanin Wellness Podcast. I am so excited to have you back here for the Medicine in Black series. We have been learning so much, and I am so grateful for your presence here. I am your host, Corey, and today we are exploring the resilience of African plant medicine, how enslaved Africans carried their knowledge of healing across the Atlantic and adapted it in new lands. When African people were forced into enslavement, they brought with them not only their strength and culture, but also a deeper understanding of the medicinal powers of plants. The plants of the Caribbean and American South were unfamiliar, very different from those of West and Central Africa. But some African plant species made the journey too, intentionally or unintentionally, as part of the transatlantic slave trade. One of those plants was wild licorice. Some of the captured Africans who survived that brutal journey wore seeds around their necks, sometimes as adornment, sometimes as symbols of home, and sometimes as a means of preserving what little they could of their traditions. When they arrived in the Americas, wild licorice became a trusted remedy used to treat coughs, fevers, and other ailments. Today, we'll explore how this plant became a lifeline in an unfamiliar world and how the knowledge of healing remained a crucial part of survival. Africans had been practicing medicine for thousands of years before the transatlantic slave trade disrupted their lives. Traditional healers, herbalists, and midwives knew how to use plants to treat infections, fevers, digestive issues, and respiratory conditions. This knowledge wasn't just practical, it was sacred, passed down through generations as a way of caring for both the body and the spirit. When enslaved Africans arrived in the Americas, they found themselves in a world where their traditional plants were scarce. But they adapted, as we always do. They learned from the land, learned from trial and error, and in some cases from indigenous healers who also had extensive plant knowledge. But some plants, like wild licorice, had made the journey with them, and that meant a vital link to their homeland. Their healing practices and their sense of self remained intact. Wild licorice, known scientifically as Licorice lepidota, I hope I am saying that correctly. Ancestors, forgive me if I am not. It is a powerful medicinal herb. It has an expectorant property, meaning that it helps clear mucus from the lungs, making it an effective treatment for coughs and respiratory infections. It also has anti-inflammatory and immune-boosting effects, which is why it was used to treat fevers. For enslaved Africans, the ability to treat illnesses without relying on plantation doctors who often neglected or mistreated them was critical. Wild licorice was a plant they could turn to, one that carried the wisdom of their ancestors and allowed them to heal themselves and their loved ones. Healing knowledge didn't just survive, it was actively and sacredly preserved, passed down through generations, often in secret. Elders taught younger generations which plants to use and how to prepare them, ensuring that the traditions of African medicine endured despite brutal conditions. But knowledge wasn't just kept within Black communities. In many cases, it was also shared between enslaved Africans and indigenous peoples who had their own rich traditions of plant medicine. These exchanges helped enslaved people navigate their new environment and find local plants with properties similar to those they had known in Africa. This blending of African and indigenous herbal knowledge contributed to the development of Southern folk medicine, a tradition that continues to influence herbal healing practices today. To heal was to resist. Enslaved people were often denied access to medical care, and when they did receive it, it was usually focused on keeping them just healthy enough to continue working. Plantation doctors rarely had their well-being in mind, so they knew that they had to rely on themselves. They foraged, they grew herbs in hidden gardens, they treated one another using the knowledge passed down from their ancestors, and they did so in defiance of a system that sought to strip them of their very humanity. Healing in this context wasn't just about physical well-being, it was about survival, dignity, and resistance. The knowledge that enslaved Africans carried across the Atlantic didn't disappear. It lives on in us. Today, we see echoes of these traditions in the way that Black communities continue to use herbal medicines and home remedies. Remedies like licorice root for colds, elderberry for immunity, and peppermint for digestion, black cohosh for menstrual cramps. All of these have roots in ancestral healing practices. And now, more than ever, there is a resurgence of interest in reclaiming this knowledge. Learning about the plants our ancestors used, understanding their benefits, and honoring the legacy of those who fought to keep these traditions alive. Wild licorice is just one example of how African healing traditions survived the horrors of enslavement and adapted to new environments. Every remedy, every plant, every whispered piece of healing wisdom passed down from generation to generation is a testament to the resilience of our ancestors. And by remembering and reclaiming this knowledge, we honor their struggles, their strength, their sacrifice, and their enduring legacy. Thank you again so much for joining me on another episode of the Melanin Wellness Podcast, Medicine in Black. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe and share this love. Next time, we'll explore another powerful healing tradition from our past. But until then, stay well, stay informed, and honor the wisdom of those who came before us.